This is CBN NewsWatch.
Thanks for joining us for this first edition of CBN NewsWatch for Monday, March 18th. I'm Mark Martin. Today, terror aftermath as police in New Zealand go on the hunt for more clues about the massacres at two mosques in New Zealand. And is former Vice President Biden getting ready to take on President Trump? We'll look at his prospects and the expanding Democratic field for president. Plus, a former 60 Minutes correspondent tells CBN News about the liberal bias in the major news media and a new approach to treating disease, focusing on the root cause of illnesses. Those stories and more on today's NewsWatch. First, Australian counter-terrorism police searched two homes in New South Wales, helping with New Zealand's investigation into the mass shooting at two mosques on Friday in Christchurch, where 50 people were killed. They also say the family of suspect Britton Tarrant are cooperating with the investigation. Meanwhile, more stories of survival and heroism come out from that day, like the one of a father shielding his son. An American child, the father was shot, the son was injured, but they both survived. Investigators now say the gunman sent disturbing messages to authorities right before the attack. The mayor of Christchurch says their focus now is healing.
The victim of this attack was our whole community, not just the Muslim community.
As New Zealand's leaders now consider strengthening gun laws, gun sales are up as residents believe their rights to own a gun could change. Historic flooding in the nation's Midwest takes at least 2 lives and others are still missing. Nebraska's rivers and dams just couldn't take the overflow of water from the winter weather that created the bomb cyclone paired with snow melt-off. A highway was cut in half by the floodwaters. One river swelled 17 feet in just 5 days, and the National Guard had to rescue people from their rooftops by helicopter. Meteorologists say more rain is in the forecast for the region on Tuesday. The expansive list of 2020 Democratic candidates grew a little bigger over the weekend, but it was a slip of the tongue from former Vice President Joe Biden that's fueling the fire of speculation. A slip that indicates he's getting ready to declare for the White House himself.
I have the most progressive record of anybody running for anybody who would run.
Biden's friend, Delaware Democratic Senator Chris Coons, is also adding to the speculation.
Well, I'm very optimistic that Joe Biden will soon formally announce his campaign for the presidency.
But a long political career could mean more than a few stumbling blocks for Biden. He's going to have to answer questions about everything from his role in the Anita Hill testimony during the Clarence Thomas hearings to his voting records. CBN News correspondent Amber Strong is covering the 2020 campaign, and she's with us now from Washington. Amber, what questions will Biden be asked about his role in the Anita Hill testimony?
Hey, Mark. Yeah, so in 1991, Joe Biden was the chair of the Senate Judiciary Committee. And as such, he kind of oversaw the proceedings of that hearing. What has happened is we fast forward to 2018 and we're post the Me Too movement, where the spirit in the room says, or the movement in the room says that women need to be heard, women need to be believed and trusted. And so people are going back to that testimony and saying, Joe Biden, you didn't do enough to protect Anita Hill. You didn't do enough to allow certain testimonies in. And Joe Biden, for his own account, has said that he regrets it. But what people want to see is Joe Biden actually say, I'm sorry to Anita Hill.
What kind of attacks can we expect when it comes to President Trump?
A lot of the candidates are making this very clear that when it comes to President Trump, they're going to point out a record of rhetoric, looking toward his rhetoric and saying that his rhetoric is divisive. We saw Kirsten Gillibrand tweet at him and say this is a president that emboldens white nationalists. We have others who are saying he spreads fear and that we are the candidates who will bring this country back together from the cliffs of division.
The Democratic field is getting kind of crowded. Who else has jumped into the race?
It definitely is. I like to call it the bingo card because there's so many candidates, it's kind of hard to keep up with. But Kirsten Gillibrand announced her candidacy yesterday. Her official launch will be on March 24th in front of Trump International. Do with that what you will. And then we saw Beto O'Rourke, former Texas congressman, jump into the race last week. One that I think you need to watch is South Bend Mayor Pete Buttigieg. He hasn't officially announced yet, but something that has set him apart from others so far is that he's willing to kind of attack some of his other contenders, not attack, but to question them. So when they say Medicare for all, he says, great, show me how you're going to do it, and I'm going to show you my step-by-step policy. So it's definitely an interesting race that doesn't seem to stop growing every day.
All right, Amber Strong from Washington, thank you for your insights.
Thank you, Mark.
In other news, Israeli security forces are still searching for a terrorist who killed a soldier and wounded 2 other Israelis in shooting attacks on Sunday. CBN Middle East correspondent Julie Stahl brings us that story from Jerusalem.
Occurred outside the Israeli city of Ariel, a Jewish community in Judea and Samaria less than 30 miles from Tel Aviv. The terrorist stabbed a soldier, 19-year-old Gal Kedan, stole his weapon and shot him to death. Then he went on a shooting spree, firing at 3 cars before getting in one and driving away. A second Israeli, Rabbi Achiad Ettinger, a father of 12, died later from his wounds. A third Israeli is still in critical condition. Israeli security forces focused their search in a nearby Arab village. In Gaza, Palestinians handed out sweets to celebrate what one tweet said was a heroic morning. President Trump's Mideast envoy Jason Greenblatt condemned the attack, tweeting, "No doubt the Palestinian Authority will reward the terrorist under its pay-for-slay policy."
I'm sure they'll apprehend them and will deal with them to the fullest extent of the law, as in all the recent incidents.
Pay to slay refers to the Palestinian Authority practice of paying good salaries to terrorists and their families. The attack came 3 days after Hamas launched 2 rockets at Tel Aviv for the first time since 2014. Israel struck back, hitting 100 Hamas targets in Gaza. Later, Hamas said the rockets were fired by mistake, but Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu said that didn't matter.
Hamas bears responsibility for any attack from the Gaza Strip, whether it's intentional or by mistake.
U.S. Secretary of State Mike Pompeo is due to visit Israel as part of a Mideast tour later this week. Netanyahu said Iran would be the focus of those talks. Meanwhile, with a little over 3 weeks until Israelis go to national elections, Netanyahu's party came out with a 1-seat lead in weekend polls over its main contender, the newly formed Blue and White Party. Julie Stahl, CBN News, Jerusalem.
In other news, President Trump attended church on St. Patrick's Day morning at St. John's Episcopal Church. It's been a place of worship for every U.S. Commander-in-Chief for 200 years. Here's a look at a previous CBN News report from Ben Kennedy on the church known as the Church of the Presidents.
Sitting across the street from the White House. St. John's Episcopal Church has served each commander-in-chief since James Madison, the nation's 4th president. Built in 1816, its proximity proved to be a dilemma for church leaders.
They said, what are we going to do to accommodate the President of the United States if he wants to attend a service?
The solution? Pew 54, which for 200 years has become known as the President's Pew.
People would come early to try to sit close by so they could shake the hand of the President when they passed the peace during the service. And that got to be kind of funny, and the rector often tells a story about how the church would slightly tilt to the left because everybody was sitting on the left-hand side when they thought the President was going to attend a service.
When the President's not in town, turns out anyone can sit in this pew. But odds are when the Commander-in-Chief shows up, Secret Service might kick you out.
I can tell you this pew is never vacant. Even at the earliest of the services.
To top that, an 18th century prayer book is put in the pew when the Commander-in-Chief attends service. That prayer book now contains signatures from past presidents.
Harry Truman, Dwight Eisenhower, John F. Kennedy, George Bush, Barack Obama, Donald Trump.
Oh, so he did sign.
Yeah.
But not every president took advantage of their reserved space.
He would sit in the very last pew on the back door.
That man is the nation's 16th president, Abraham Lincoln.
He would come in quietly, sit in the back pew by himself, and contemplate, pray, do what he had to do to deal with the burdens of the Civil War. And just before the service would end, he would quietly walk out that back door.
The doors remain open at St. John's both as a parish and as a piece of history in the heart of Washington, D.C. Ben Kennedy, CBN News, Washington.
Fascinating story. Well, coming up, a former 60 Minutes correspondent speaks out, telling CBN News about bias in the major media. Now, here's a look at the top trending stories on CBNNews.com.
When you give, smiles grow bigger. When you care, homes are happier. When you comfort, the hurt goes away. When we all come together to love, miracles happen.
Hello, I'm Terry Newsom. Did you know there are more than 148 million orphans in the world today? 148 million. But it was 3 little girls that taught me about the plight of orphans. My husband and I spent nearly a month immersed in the daily activities of a Ukrainian orphanage as we waited to adopt 3 sisters. I saw firsthand the utter loneliness, the pain of rejection, and the overwhelming desire to be loved. That experience changed me forever. And out of it grew a ministry from my heart called Orphans Promise. Today, we're helping orphans and vulnerable children in more than 50 countries worldwide. Thousands of children are now in safe homes. They're being educated, and they're learning life skills. I'm asking you to join with me and become family to these children. Will you call the number on your screen right now? Because every child deserves a chance to be happy.
Hello? Is this thing on? Hey, kids, do you love games? And do you love discovering things? Well, do ya?
Then you're gonna love this. It's the new free Superbook Kids Bible app. You can play games, watch videos, find answers to your questions, and a whole lot more. The new Superbook Kids Bible app. Free downloads available on iTunes and Google Play now.
Welcome back. Lara Logan is a veteran war correspondent and former 60 Minutes reporter. She recently made headlines by calling out the mainstream media for liberal bias. While her boldness drew both cheers and criticism, Logan told CBN's Jennifer Wishon she'll always stand up for the truth, even if it hurts her career.
Is it strange for you when you are the news?
Yeah, it is strange. And, you know, I think because I'm on television, people think that that's a place that I like to be. But actually, I'm much more comfortable being the light for someone else's story.
We caught up with Lara Logan here in New York City, one of America's top news hubs, a place where Logan says the vast majority of journalists are doing their readers, listeners, and viewers a grave injustice.
The truth is that most of my career, I never even noticed there was a liberal bias because I was part of it. And I just mean that in the sense that I grew up very liberal, and so it wasn't noticeable to me. And you know, when most of the people around you share your opinions, you're not so aware of all the people who don't.
For much of her 30-year career, Logan says she often argued with people who repeatedly asked why the media is so liberal. When did you personally feel or discover this liberal bias? When did it hit you?
When I was attacked for the Benghazi story, that was really when it hit me, because suddenly I was being accused of being conservative.
She's talking about a story she reported for 60 Minutes. After it aired, she realized her main source wasn't credible.
We realized we had been misled, and it was a mistake to include him in our report.
Her report raised serious questions about the Obama administration's response to the attack on the American consulate and came as Republicans demanded answers. Logan says it's fair to say she was naive about wading into a political firestorm, but insists her approach was objective. The media tore into her.
People tried to say that it was politically motivated. The fact that we even did that story was a political decision, and that was a shock to me.
Now she's speaking out, not as an activist, but as a journalist, telling the story of liberal media bias.
This battlefield is in some ways more frightening than any battlefield I've ever been on, out, in some distant, faraway land.
While the mainstream media dismisses conservative outlets as biased, she says liberal outlets get a free pass, and anyone who dares to challenge them is quickly shamed.
Why are people trying to undermine that? So that my voice won't be heard, so that I can be sidelined and dismissed as some kind of right-wing lunatic conspiracy theorist, and nobody has to pay attention to what I'm saying? Are they trying to take the credibility that comes from all the years of work, decades of work, from being out there on the field in the middle of the story? It's very, very hard because it costs a lot. Personally, they'll try to destroy your career so that you can never work again, so that you can't feed your children, so that it's very difficult to survive. I mean, this is not a small thing.
You have become a bit of a conservative darling. Are you comfortable
for the moment
in that space?
I'm a conservative darling for the moment. Am I still a conservative darling if the facts lead me somewhere else? If the conservative side dominated the political spectrum, I suspect you'd see a lot of the same things that you're seeing on the left right now. Because dominating the information space, dominating the political space, dominating anything, in my experience, doesn't typically bring out the best in us.
Is it hard for you to watch the news, to read the news?
You're going to get me into all kinds of trouble here. Yes, I mean, I don't. I rarely watch it. It's painful. It's painful. It's so annoying. I tried channel surfing. I flick between all the different channels, just like a lot of people do.
I wonder what you think about fake news.
Well, when something sticks, it's usually because there's a degree of truth to it, right? It's not just an issue of being true or not true, because sometimes you can take little pieces of the truth and you can stitch them together in a way that creates a whole that is very dishonest and very deceptive. So I see that happening all the time. Every time I pick up a newspaper, every time I read something online, every time I turn on the television, I see that happening. And that, to me, is the real source of fake news.
She's not sure why the truth is threatening, but she's certain the news business can turn itself around.
If we accept that it's unwinnable, if we accept that nothing can be done, then nothing will be done. But everything can be changed. Nothing is permanent. And it starts by standing up and being honest about it and encouraging other people to do the same.
And while Logan weighs her next move, she says one thing is certain: she'll always remain dedicated to the truth. Jennifer Wishon, CBN News, New York.
Still ahead, it's a new approach to treating sicknesses. Instead of focusing on symptoms, it goes after the root causes of the problems. We're going to have that story when we come back.
When you give, smiles grow bigger. When you care, homes are happier. When you comfort, the hurt goes away. When we all come together to love, miracles happen.
Hello, I'm Terry Newsom. Did you know there are more than 148 million orphans in the world today? 148 million. But it was 3 little girls that taught me about the plight of orphans. My husband and I spent nearly a month immersed in the daily activities of a Ukrainian orphanage as we waited to adopt 3 sisters. I saw firsthand the utter loneliness, the pain of rejection, and the overwhelming desire to be loved. That experience changed me forever. And out of it grew a ministry from my heart called Orphans Promise, Today, we're helping orphans and vulnerable children in more than 50 countries worldwide. Thousands of children are now in safe homes. They're being educated, and they're learning life skills. I'm asking you to join with me and become family to these children. Will you call the number on your screen right now? Because every child deserves a chance to be happy.
Hello? Is this thing on? Hey, kids, do you love games? And do you love discovering things? Well, do ya?
Then you're gonna love this. It's the new free Superbook Kids Bible app. You can play games, watch videos, find answers to your questions, and a whole lot more. The new Superbook Kids Bible app. Free downloads available on iTunes and Google Play now.
Thanks for staying with us. Functional medicine is a new approach to treating disease. It takes away the emphasis on your symptoms and focuses on the root cause of what's bothering you. CBN News medical reporter Lori Johnson introduces us to a woman who suffered for years until she found a doctor who treated her with this new method.
These days, Cindy Tedrow enjoys life, like playing with her dogs. That wasn't the case when she faced horrific health problems.
I would pray, Lord, if you want me, take me. Just take me.
For most of her adult life, she suffered from infections, fatigue, and pain.
My legs felt like they were cement, and it took that much effort to pick them up and move.
She also struggled with hormone issues and obesity.
I could not lose weight. I could not lose weight. No matter what I tried, I could not lose weight.
Her seizures made life unpredictable.
I would make a commitment and then I would have to cancel. And I know people didn't understand that. And it was so hard.
Seizures eventually forced her to stop driving and teaching.
And I loved my job. I loved my job. I just couldn't do it anymore. The hardest thing is I couldn't go to church a lot of times. And that really, really was hard.
On Cindy and her husband.
I could see the fear on his face. And I could hear the fear in my mom's voice, too.
In searching for answers, she visited 20 doctors and took numerous medications. Nothing helped.
They would send me from one specialist to another specialist, and I would have medication. They would give me medication for that particular symptom. And so at one time I was in 22 prescriptions. And getting worse. I was just getting worse.
With nothing to lose, she decided to try a different approach. She went to the Cleveland Clinic's Functional Medicine Center, led by Dr. Mark Hyman.
Functional medicine is a new way of thinking about disease that gets to the root cause. It doesn't focus so much on symptoms as the question of why you have those symptoms.
Cindy got better and fast.
In a very short time, she only lost an enormous amount of weight, but was able to end her seizures, to recover her energy, to end her brain fog, and to be engaged in her life again.
An estimated 80% of all health problems are caused by an unhealthy diet, too much sugar and processed foods, and not enough vegetables and healthy fats.
Once Cindy started eating the prescribed anti-inflammatory diet, she lost 80 pounds.
The weight just melted away. It just melted away. It's not hard. It is not hard. I basically just stick to real meat, real vegetables. I have to stay away from the carbs.
Functional medicine doctors often recommend supplementing a healthy diet with things like vitamin D, fish oil, and a probiotic.
The gut microbiome has been linked to depression and cancer and heart disease and diabetes and obesity and autoimmune diseases and allergies and asthma. So that doesn't make sense given our current model of describing disease. When you go to the cardiologist, they don't ask you about your gut microbiome, right? They want to know if they should put you on a statin or a beta blocker or an aspirin, and not think about why is there inflammation? Why is there high blood pressure? Why is your cholesterol abnormal? And fix that.
Functional medicine doctors advise their patients to take steps to feel more peaceful because stress is at the root of so many health issues.
Thoughts, stress, exercise, sleep, And also community and connection, because many of us are isolated and many of us are lonely, and that promotes disease. And in a faith-based world, it's really about connection, community, belonging, meaning, purpose. Those are also ingredients for health.
They told us about meditation, and I didn't do meditation, but I was already praying, and that has made a tremendous difference.
The medical world pays attention to results like Cindy's.
Which is something we see routinely in functional medicine. It's something that often traditional physicians are surprised at, because these are patients that they've tried for decades to try to help and mitigate symptoms. So we don't go for symptoms, we go for causes.
Compared to the conventional approach of simply relying on big pharma, functional medicine often focuses on significant lifestyle changes. While that's more responsibility and discipline, people like Cindy Tedrow, who've tried both, say the extra effort pays off in the long run. Lori Johnson, CBN News.
And we'll be right back.
When you give, smiles grow bigger. When you care, homes are happier. When you comfort, the hurt goes away. When we all come together to love, miracles happen.
Hello, I'm Terry Newsom. Did you know there are more than 148 million orphans in the world today? 148 million. But it was 3 little girls that taught me about the plight of orphans. My husband and I spent nearly a month immersed in the daily activities of a Ukrainian orphanage as we waited to adopt 3 sisters. I saw firsthand the utter loneliness, the pain of rejection, and the overwhelming desire to be loved. That experience changed me forever. And out of it grew a ministry from my heart called Orphans Promise. Today, we're helping orphans and vulnerable children in more than 50 countries worldwide. Thousands of children are now in safe homes. They're being educated, and they're learning life skills. I'm asking you to join with me and become family to these children. Will you call the number on your screen right now? Because every child deserves a chance to be happy.
Hello? Is this thing on? Hey, kids, do you love games? And do you love discovering things? Well, do ya?
Then you're gonna love this. It's the new free Superbook Kids Bible app. You can play games, watch videos, find answers to your questions, and a whole lot more. The new Superbook Kids Bible app. Free downloads available on iTunes and Google Play now.
That's it for today's first edition of CBN NewsWatch. You can find more on the issues you care about most at cbnnews.com. Also watch CBN News programs anytime on our CBN News channel. And tell us what you think about the stories you've seen here by emailing newswatch@cbn.com. Or talk to us on social media. Hope you'll join us next time. Have a great day.